order, stand for the pledge of allegiance. All right, at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Lappy, who's going to give us an update from last night's meeting. Oh, sorry, so we're roll call.
Prior to roll call, I need to read a letter. Dear Mrs. Ord, fellow directors, and Superintendent Kieran, I have asked that Mrs. Ord read this letter at tonight's budget hearing. It is with a heavy heart that I write today to tender my resignation from the Scranton School Board, effective immediately. I have accepted a position as Special Assistant to the Pennsylvania Auditor General, whose office has audit authority over the Scranton School District. It would be a clear conflict of interest for me to remain on the board. It was very difficult to make this decision to leave the Scranton School Board, as there is much work to be done, but I leave the effort in your capable hands. We have made great strides in the past year, and I will be cheering you on as you continue to work to get the district back on track. My new position within the Office of the Auditor General is a continuation of the fight for transparency and accountability and legal and efficient use of taxpayer dollars. It is also an opportunity to highlight the serious, immediate need for fair education funding for Scranton and all of Pennsylvania's 500 school districts. I have learned a great deal from you all and will take this experience with me to my new role and throughout my life. I am also grateful to the administrators, teachers, parents, and students who make the Scranton School District a great place for children to learn and grow every day. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve as a member of the Scranton School Board. Sincerely, Paige Gebhardt Carnegie. And
Roll call.
Mr. Casey?
Present.
Mr. Duffy?
Present. With what?
Ms. Gilmartin?
Present.
Mr. Lesh? Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Pople?
Present.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Mrs. Dixon?
Present.
7 present, 1 absent.
All right, at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Lappy.
Before Mr. Laffey speaks, obviously I'm here with my little guy when we have a bunch of meetings. We couldn't work out a schedule tonight, so I didn't want to miss the meeting, so I'll try my best if he starts to get a little rambunctious. I'm going to just kind of be in the area. But sorry for this, just had no other way to.
And me missing my grandson who's down south loved this, so I'll help Mr. Duffy out.
Use all that.
Good evening. We're here to provide you with a budget update for December 12th, our third public hearing. Last evening, we presented to you a budget that included the addition of some staff that we provided the detail for. That addition, the total impact of that was $1,545,883. So in these numbers, I'm going to read you highlighted under December 12th includes that impact. We're proposing revenues of $159,765,547 and expenditures of $166,394,229. That's a deficit of $6,628,000. Last evening, we proposed some adjustments, including reductions to our healthcare budget of $1.2 million, some salary corrections of about $264,000, and corrections of some of our employee benefits line items of $394,000. When we last evening, it was our instruction to take another look at our building budgets and our central office budgets, and we're presenting to you tonight central office budget reductions that total about $60,000. They're highlighted on the page. We're proposing to decrease our rental budget by $18,000. That's related to the amount we have budgeted for Whittier Annex and also for the Willard apartment. Our medical budget adjustment, we're proposing to decrease it by $14,000. It will be presented at next Wednesday with a possible resolution for an advertising opportunity that would offset the cost of our district for central office line item adjustments, including the business office, superintendent's office, the board budget, instruction, including technology, elementary, secondary, guidance, and people personnel. We also look to provide an update on some communication savings. Effective January 1st, we'll be transitioning to Zito Communications. That was a bid service that we feel will produce some savings to the district. We will call scheduled for the end of the week to find out what the impact of that is.
And that was our internet provider, wasn't it, something like that? That was, sorry.
So as we sit here this evening with those adjustments, deficit as we project is at $5,498,000.
On the 19th, we'll be voting on the copy proposal.
Yes.
Will that be just to award to the newest provider, or would that be also voting to allow them to enter a lease with the company? Set part to that vote.
It will be awarded to the lowest bidder that responded to the RFQ.
So then there will be a separate lease for their lease, or would that be all encompassed?
It's
all part of it. Yeah.
It's incorporated into the same group.
So in that packet, I haven't fully analyzed it, is there a copy of the lease for the lowest bidder?
There's a copy of the lease that will be given in executive session. We haven't entered into it yet.
There are also a couple things that were asked for last night. Did we get any updates on any of that? I'm not sure what some of the items were. I know looking into the IT budget was.
Yes,
was one
I'm
we
sorry.
discussed.
We did look into that.
So we reviewed the IT budget. In 2018, the district budgeted for total IT, including professional services, your 300s on down to 760s, which would be replacement equipment, $993,000. The 2019 budget, as you have it, we've already reduced it after consulting with the IT staff and our data personnel down to $889,000. So there's already proposed to a reduction of over $104,000.
Also, last night we were told that there was going to be a presentation for the school consolidation, which we heard about in the last few days from PFA.
No, it was not for tonight. I said before the end of this evening, I would get the report to take a look at and then bring it to the board. I thought I could have it in your Friday packet.
So at this point in time, there's no update on that.
Not at this time.
Could you see before Wednesday, broken out reduction that we've seen from vendors throughout the entire year?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something that we've been working on. Obviously, President Dick Dixon has requested. I was hoping to provide him the packet this weekend.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Any follow-up from last night?
I have a question. So last night you provided us with this breakdown of mandated teachers we need to hire because of special ed and unmandated teachers. So as of 2016, I made a motion for a hiring freeze, and that should still be in effect. So the ones that are mandated, I get because, you know, of our special ed population, but the other ones that are embedded in here now weren't approved. And for example, like there's 2 dean of students. So I understand it's, you know, it's a big buzzword with safety coming from the PDE, but we have a hiring freeze. So these were likes or need to have or nice to have. We talked about that. So, I mean,
If I believe
Mr.
Go ahead.
McAndrew, I can make it very easy for you. If that is a bone of contention and you want to continue the hiring freeze, that's what I had asked. We can remove those. I have no problem with that. If you feel that that's something you'd like to take out. The reason we added it in is when the principals came to talk with you, that was their initial request. So we definitely feel like in our high schools, we can use an additional administrator. as we were originally. Right now, we have a student population that's growing at Westside High. But it seems that this keeps coming back to the table, so if that's something you would like us to remove, we will remove that and make do at this point with what we have if you want to keep the hiring freeze in place. The cyber teachers, because of a contractual, our SFT contract, and because of the growth in this program and what we're experiencing, those I would not be able to so easily say they're not necessary because they are essential, so to speak, for that program.
I'm just not comfortable hiring 2 dean students, 1 for each high school, where I'd probably be more comfortable hiring a librarian to each school. Because, I mean, the cuts were made last year, and now we're just adding 2 more administrative positions.
Well, we can just scratch those off, Mr. Laffin,
Sure.
if that's the will of the board.
And we can reflect that impact on the budget in your board package this week.
Thank you.
Adding to that, so with these staffing recommendations, was it the will of the board that all of this go through, minus the junior students?
Frankly, not right now. I asked last night to see a breakdown for the PCAs, and I know that
We
can be
have-
provided.
We worked with Ms. Baddock today. I know you'll have it ready for the packet for this weekend where we have the breakdown. But I will tell you, since it was reported that we need 12 additional special education teachers, we did get a call from PDE today. They are sending someone from the special ed department to assess the situation and determine whether or not what we're saying we need is indeed what we need. But Ms. Baddock is going by the state standards. So we're pretty certain that they will support that effort, but they know that that is the request, and they're coming in to audit our classroom numbers, and they will support that request or not, because that's what Mr. McAndrew referred to as mandated.
That was my question, Doctor. I know they're referred to as mandated. So we're going to have oversight from PDE on the caseloads that the special ed teachers are carrying.
Yes.
The reasons for the PCAs that are being assigned in the
Yes.
IEPs. They're going to be looking at all of that.
Yes, in fact, they're coming right away. I want to say it's tomorrow, but honestly, with everything that's going on, I can't remember if it is tomorrow or early next week.
Okay, so PDE is going to be looking at the 12 special education teachers.
Yes.
Are they also going to be looking at the PCAs?
Yes,
That was my question.
yeah.
They're going to look at the individual IEPs to see if they're mandated.
And to Mr. Casey's request, Ms. Baddock did summarize for us without names, you know, what the IEP is requiring.
And the reason for the PCA?
Yes.
Now, with the PCAs, I know last year that maybe a different route to bring them on, maybe subcontract them.
Yes.
Do we have other options
Yes.
at this point in time?
So here's the situation right now. We did look at other options last year, and you decided as a board to hire a certain number. That number was hired, and the rest were contracted. So it's a hybrid model right now. So we would like to continue that model, again, to answer Mr. McAndrew's concern about where do they go. So if they're not on our payroll and we are contracting out, as we can let them go because a student leaves and another student hasn't come in, we can do that as opposed to those who are hired and working with us. So we'd like to keep that hybrid model, same as we did last year.
Have any of the PCAs from last year, have the kids moved on? And they recycled those
Yes.
individuals?
we have.
Mr. McAndrew's concern is a very valid concern.
Yes, it is.
And if I remember, isn't there language that some of these PCAs could be medically reimbursed?
Well, those who we're bringing in that we're contracting, they do qualify for medical access
Okay.
billing. And we are using that billing to get reimbursement to the district for those PCAs.
And that's built into last night's sheet as well, right?
That's correct.
Mr. Lappy, do you have another copy of that?
I just, yes, I do.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of that. So that number may be
The
in,
individual's not hired, but the individual's got a
That's
contract.
absolutely correct, yes.
so when all that is peeled apart, this number might be inflated,
The hires,
the hires.
our need right now is 12. We're contracting, is it 9 or 10, I believe, and they're on that rotation. So we would still have access to them, but this is additional.
Okay.
Do we expect to have a determination from PDE before next week?
Well, if I could dig it out of my brain, I'm hoping that we can. I'll check with Sharon Baddock tomorrow, and we'll request them to expedite this, hopefully prior to our budget proposal. Mhm.
I just asked a question. I'm so new to this place. The hiring freeze is in place?
Yes.
Yes, the board has not lifted that.
Because I just, as myself, looking at this deficit, I cannot myself vote for any increase in the staff unless it is completely mandated, if we're required to by law or in the state. That's one thing, but any others, I just can't see, I can't see that happening right now. I really can't, and the hiring freeze, I think, was a good thing, and it's a step in the right direction, but I think we have to go even go further, much further.
So when it comes to the hall monitors, are they considered new positions or are they replacement positions?
They'd be new positions to what?
Because we furloughed last year. And I believe Mr., our intermediate school principals came and spoke to you about their concerns in their school without having additional hall monitors. And they each asked for 2 additional. That would be up to the board to decide whether or not you want to move forward with that or continue to keep the hiring freeze throughout this year. So, which would mean that they would have to make do, as they've had to do up to this point. Teachers would have to be outside their classroom doors. Those teachers near the stairwells would have to position themselves so. The principal, the assistant principal, the SRO would have to circulate throughout the school. And then in the cafeteria, Aramark did hire additional monitors for in the cafeteria, and they would still have those bodies there. They're being paid for through Aramark.
Doctor, are you exploring, I'm just throwing this out there, are you exploring with your senior staff different types of scheduling models to cover that better?
Well, our scheduling models would not cover supervision better. We are looking at some other options for the intermediate schools related arts.
Okay. To address the concerns that came here?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Laffey, do we have any services that come in our district that provide service that pay rent?
That pay rent? Off the top of my head, not that I'm aware of.
I was just wondering if we did, if we would be able to ask for rent for services like Aramark on a yearly basis. If that was a situation that already happened for more recurring revenue, because at this point, our revenue is just not, we're gaining no new revenue. I'm just looking at that, if there's at least one vendor, we can go as precedent, other vendors throughout the district do so as well.
Yeah, Yeah, in regards to our food service management company, I think any rental that we would instill in would obviously reduce our return on our food service. But we can certainly look into it. I'm not exactly sure what the guidelines say about that.
I don't think it's time to the K through 12 standard. I don't believe so.
But what we can do, and what we are doing, is explore the indirect cost rate. We're applying for it this year, which is a way that we can allocate that space that they operate in to recoup some of the utility costs and things of that nature that in the past we have not been able to do so.
Anything else from the board? So we're going to turn it over to public comment, which is what these hearings are about. And before we do that, I'd just like to say that we're looking at a possible tax increase that could go above the cap of 4.6%. For the median assessed home of $10,000, that would be a tax increase of $90 per household. Also, the deficit we're looking at tonight is a $5.4 million deficit, so keep that in mind. And the first speaker is Jim McDonough, or Jim McGough, I'm sorry.
My question to you guys is this the only paper you have relating to the budget?
I'm not really sure what we have to hand.
I'm wondering how you're making decisions from this.
The original document with more detail is provided on the district website and also at our business office, actually the library as well.
We also have a rather
Apparently,
large
you're not
binder.
making decisions based on all the information.
Yeah, we get information in our packets.
But last year, we were at the meeting, and you had a video presentation, and it was asked from the public to provide the expenses from the previous year. How can you have a budget? You don't know what you expended for the year. For every category should have what you're projecting, what you projected last year, and what you spent last year. So you don't know any place here what's been spent. You do know?
We
You
got
know?
that,
You know?
yes, I do,
Yeah.
because we got that in the beginning of December. Why
We don't know because it's not here.
Well, it's not about the financial statement as of yet, but the projected 2018, the actual 2017, and the projected 2018 results are included into the budget.
Well, the 2017 is what was asked last year for the 2016 to have been on the paper so the public could look at it and say, you know, well, we budgeted so much and we spent so much, so we don't need that much money. Or we've changed something to need more money. I don't know how you make a decision with this. It doesn't make sense to me at all. And you guys, whoever was here last year, said that you would make it different. And that obviously is not different. Do you have those figures?
They're provided on the district website, in the business office of the school district, and also at the library.
Pat, correct, just, I'm going back to our budget and finance meeting. They were presented at the budget and finance meeting as well. In the beginning of December, was that? Yeah, end of November?
November 19th.
November 19th.
And that meeting is probably available online.
Yes. So that information has been presented.
Okay. As it relates to these teachers that you actually have to hire. But is anybody looking at the savings that you're going to generate by hiring them? Because the district is being sued many times through the course of a year by handicapped children's parents because they're not following their IEPs. And how much money does that cost us?
We are working with PDE's Special Education Department. They have just completed an audit of student IEPs and have made recommendations where we can do better in that area. We've also changed the way that we're negotiating with opposing attorneys. when we are challenged for special education.
But these directors have to know what
These
that expense
directors
is.
do know, we are talking.
Do you know what the expense is
Because
associated with the legal situations that we have on, for handicapped children?
you get the expense monthly, sir,
You do.
broken down in our packet, and a whole explanation
Well,
of
there
the
is going to be a
actual seven.
savings in this, right?
We,
We're not going to have as many suits if we have more teachers to do the job we're supposed to do.
And the personal care attendants, which should
Huh?
reduce litigation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
well,
Yes,
So you're
litigation.
gonna have
That's
an
the
added
whole,
expense,
that's what we hope.
but it's not only going to be an added expense, there's going to be some kind of savings in it. Today
we
spend
have a tremendous,
$50,000 on lawyers to fight this, the children's parents that are not getting what they're supposed to get in their IEPs, right? You spend that money on lawyers, and then now we're not gonna have that problem because we're hiring teachers to take care of that problem. So the expense of the lawyers and the expense of the claims will go away. And
No.
the money will come in for the teachers. No? Why not? We're going to keep paying the lawyers?
well, the special education law requires quite a bit of attention to our students with disabilities. We look at each student individually, and we do the best we can for that student. If the parent is not satisfied with what the school district is doing, we sometimes have litigation, and we try our best to keep that cost down.
Okay, well,
So-
we do have a cost to it.
We have
So does
23%.
this gentleman here know what that total is for the year?
Yes,
He
it does.
does. Okay.
And the board knows because
Okay, and the board knows.
they receive
Okay, so, but
information.
that's gonna reduce itself, because a lot of the charges and claims that you're getting are because you don't have teachers in the appropriate positions to help the kids.
It's not that we don't have teachers in the right positions. Our student population of students with special needs has increased tremendously. It went from, in 2015 to 18% to 23%.
I'm not getting any place here, but
Well,
the
yes,
reality
you will
is,
get someplace if you'll let me finish, sir.
I don't need to hear you.
Okay, well, then you're not going to get the correct answer you're looking for. I'm so
They have an
sorry.
expense, an extraordinary expense, associated with the legal systems on disabled children. And hopefully, these teachers and the aides are going to fill that gap, and we're not going to have as many
He doesn't.
of those items. So we don't have to pay so much of the legal fee, and we don't have to pay a suit for whatever the parents claim. That's all I'm saying. It should wash to some degree. The expense of what we do today versus what we're going to do tomorrow. That's not why I'm here, but I saw that in the thing. So I'm here for, the primary thing is to think out of the box to create more revenue. The Scranton School District, or the Scranton City, came up with a great idea to sell the sewer authority. And they made a lot of money. And so I'm asking you as the board, out of the box. Mrs. Cognetti's not here, so I thought she would really at least look into such a thing. I think you should consider selling all of your real estate and concentrate on education.
Well, that would give us a one-time infusion of funds.
A lot of
and
money.
It would reduce our ability to borrow if we needed to. We
You won't have to
can't-
borrow,
We
because
can't
you're going to
liquidate
have
all
more
our
money than
assets.
enough.
Well, we would not.
If you sell all your real estate,
That's
you won't?
correct.
I don't think that's the case. But if you sell all your real estate, including the administration building, and and take that one-time infusion and then lease it back from the people that buy it, I think you'll be in really good shape. And that's exactly what this Scranton City did, and it might be something that you might want to look into and entertain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bob Bowles.
Good evening, Board. Bob Bowles, Scranton. Start off, I disagree with a 7% tax. You need more cuts, not more taxes in this city. You know, if you're heading into cause a receipt for disaster on the present course we're going, you can't overcome the past mistakes you've made by just adding more burden to the people in this community. You need to take the hard facts. You gotta run it like a business. You saw General Motors, you see companies, they make cuts. And other people pitch in to do what other people were doing before. Your teachers need to do more work, not less, and receive more money. That's number one. Number two, you should have gone after the mall in downtown Scranton and pushed for a reassessment and the millions of dollars that should be paid on it. That mall should be assessed at 20 to 30, $35 million, not paying like $3 million or whatever they're paying on it. You've ignored all that. What you've been doing is stepping over the dollars to get at the pennies. And it's been proven. What I'm saying here isn't a hypothetical scenario. This is factual. You mismanaged our assets tremendously. How many people here have a degree in business? You got a degree in business. How many companies have you operated? That's correct. Well, I've been in it 57 years. Okay? And I couldn't go to people and say, raise my taxes. I was forced to file a bankruptcy because one of my properties, because of taxes that we challenged in court, because the tax collector in Lackawanna County elected to try and put us into a judicial sale. And to protect my assets from an illegal tax, we went to defend ourselves, but it compromised our borrowing abilities or anything else. Just like Doctor said, if you give up your properties, you can't borrow a dime. These are the things that are going wrong. Remember, we're in the city of Scranton. We get taxed there, we get taxed by you, and we get hammered by Lackawanna County. How do you expect the city to grow to do what you want to do if you don't take the bull by the horns and do what's right? I have nothing against teachers. I'm born and raised in Scranton. I've gone through every school in Scranton. It's not about being a teacher. It's about being efficient. When you turn around and allow teachers to take an in-service day on a working day, our employees can't come to work. The kids got to go home. You should be making them come there Saturday or Sunday, or after school hours, because you're hurting us. Yet you want us to pay more taxes, but you keep taking. It snows a little. We got to have a day off to watch TV. Everybody's on the ski slopes or at the mall doing everything when they could have went to school. What a delay. The roads get opened up. And we're ignoring that. We're worried about the children and the efficiency of an accident. Understandably, I've been into towing and recovery for 50-some years. I don't want to see anybody get hurt on a road. But in the same token, roads get open, roads get operational. Employees have to go to work. They have to support their kids. They got to pay their bills. They can't tax somebody to get their money. But you people don't take that into consideration. You only look at self-service. You don't look at the overall picture, yet you want to raise the tax. You can't keep taxing and not be efficient in your operation. Look at the past history of the Scranton School Board. They're a bloody disaster. If any one of you people have worked in the private sector, you would have all been fired for your inefficiency of allowing what happened here. Fuel bills, other things that went on and ignored. You can't turn your head and blame anybody but yourselves. But you're not doing anything to correct the problem. You're not changing what's been going on. You continue to stay in the same trough of disaster. You're not changing. The school, Scranton, yeah, they made a ton of money out of the school, the sewer dip. But we still have issues there. We have the stormwater issues. We have a bunch of problems yet. That money may evaporate in legal litigation and everything else because there's no pre-planning. There's no thinking. It was just, let's grab it. And we'll worry about hammering the people later. You have to increase the tax base to decrease the tax rate in this community. What we're doing here, we're chasing people out of here. It's Friday, I'm having a major auction and eliminating 80% of my companies in this community. That's with a heavy heart I'm doing it, but you can't afford to be here anymore. People don't want to come and live here because they can't afford to live here. Because they don't know what's around the corner next. What are you people going to change next? What's the next little mystery that you haven't told us about? Or what's going to jump out of the closet at us? And right away, hammer the people, hammer the seniors. But don't go after where your real money is. Like the mall and nonprofits. Put a fee on the nonprofits. University could pay 1% of their gross. Would be close to 13, 14 million a year. You wouldn't have a debt here. Well, you're not looking there because it's not politically correct to go do it. And you got to get rid of your political correctness and come down to the basics. Who you represent. That's what you got here. You got the people here. You're not doing that job. I hate to be critical, and I'm not trying to be insulting, but you can't sit back and watch what's going on. This room should be filled with all the citizens of the city. Filled. There's people in here a lot smarter than I am, a lot smarter than you are. But they quarterback from the bleachers. They got to come out here and get on the playing field. To help you in the guidance, but you got to understand when somebody's telling you something or suggesting it, you actually have to do something about it and not be politically correct. Blame the doctor for this or blame you for that. We're all one body here. Whether you're the school board, city council, and they're confused. There's a few people on there, you had a meeting with them, but you didn't come up with a concrete suggestion because they don't know how to suggest. They cannot run the city of Scranton. How are they going to run the school board? So these are the issues we're running with. I'm looking for people in this city that put their personal views to the side and do what's black and white. And that's what the situation is. It's a black and white situation. You can't continue to go where we're going because we're not going anywhere. We're just pushing the peas around the plate. And sooner or later, it's going to come back, bite us again. And it's going to continue to do that. I came here tonight, I wasn't going to come here because I'm kind of sick of what went on, and I ran for office in this community. I've been criticized by the Scranton Times about running for office and nobody voted. But at least Chris showed up. I even brought him coffee from Russia because he wanted to know where my Russian playmates were. So we brought him coffee so we could teach him that there's cultures outside of the city of Scranton. And it helped him out a little. He had Russian coffee.
Tea, too, we brought tea.
He drank the Russian tea. See, that I knew we'd go for something different. But this is what it's about. We all have to work together, and you need to educate us in a more factual way instead of a few words on paper. You got to explain it in black and white, where you're going to get the revenue from, how you're going to do this. Tell me where you're bringing it from. Don't just give me a pie-in-the-sky idea from a basic accounting principle that's black and white, but don't tell me what's in between. Tell us, explain it to us. Teach us like Duffy's little boy out there that we're educated like you would teach him. You got to teach us. because we don't know it, then we can't help you. And then you're criticized. So when you have a meeting, before you decide something, talk to the people. But talk on the level we need to know, not on assumptions. Because you know what assumption means, and you're all educated, so you know what that word tells us. Okay, so we can't be there anymore, but if we're gonna grow in this city, and we're gonna do it, you can't point the finger at each one, because you're all one part of it. There's no one different or better here than anybody else. You are the board, not individuals. Remember that, so when you do it as a body. And you gotta use common sense, and we're not implying that. You need to look to make your cuts. You need to generate revenue. You're a business, and you have assets. Turn your assets into dollars, but don't keep taking it out of our pocket and then do nothing. That's what I'm gonna leave you with. The ball's in your court, and we're gonna make sure you play ball the right way this time. We're not gonna allow you to get away with what went on in the past and make excuses. We didn't know who had this contract or that contract, or we didn't know this and know that. That's total stupidity and ignorance. But it was all the board that allowed it to happen. Have a Merry Christmas. And my dinner is on Christmas Day anyway. It's the 25th year. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Holly Mead.
Hi, Holly Mead, teacher at Northeast Intermediate School. After attending numerous school board meetings and numerous work sessions, I have a few questions concerning the budget. This board has been extremely focused with balancing the budget by slowly cutting line item after line item each week. I applaud you all for finding savings in areas that we did not see before. But no matter how many small budget gaps you fill, it still won't be enough. The only way to balance the budget is to ask the state to correct the funding formula for the Scranton School District. Director Duffy, I applaud your efforts, but very few people in the public make the connection between state funding and their child's education. You need a PR campaign that doesn't cost any money to get your message out to the public. I would ask the board to make a public statement, or at least write letters to the editors of the newspapers here and in Harrisburg with all of your names attached to it. All 9 of you need to go to Harrisburg as a united front to work on state funding, not just 3 or 4 working on behalf of the group. When an entire school board shows up in Harrisburg with facts and figures, maybe they will listen. This is your one shot at solving this budget crisis, but it will only be successful if all of you work together. All 9 of you joined the school board to make a difference for the students in Scranton. Well, now here's your chance. If I was you and my re-election date was less than 6 months away, I'd want to go on record as trying to get more state funding. Otherwise, you run the risk of being a complacent board member content with just the status quo. I'm hoping you choose the latter. Here are my specific questions. I thank the Times for posting a picture yesterday. I'm not sure, but I don't think that hall monitors contribute to PSERS. I could be incorrect. You might want to check that. Mrs. Dixon, you asked about the scheduling model and would that change supervision? 100% yes, it would. Currently in our schedule, we don't have duties. So those are supervisory in nature, and we don't have those. So if the schedule was changed, you wouldn't have to hire the hall monitors, and we could have our duties, and we could supervise the students. So I think that was incorrect.
Holly, can I ask a question?
Sure.
If we hired, or if we put your duty period back in the schedule, would we have to hire new teachers, and would we have to extend the school day?
I don't think so, but I'm not in charge.
We would.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. I'm just saying that since there's no lunch, we don't have lunch duty, we don't have hall duty, you need something to have in place of that. I get that you don't want to hire anybody else, I totally get that, but there's no hall monitor supervision in Northeast Intermediate School. And you have earmarked people as the lunch monitors. And I believe someone spoke to you guys, I think 2 weeks ago, about saying how this is how teachers spend a lot of that duty time with the kids. I get to know all the kids when I'm on lunch duty. I talk to them. Like, it's not just us standing there and supervising. That's a time for us to get to know them, get to know their friends. So, and my other huge question was, I never, and I'm totally being serious, I have no idea where this $6 million is going specifically. I saw it in the little paper that I got when I came here tonight, but I don't know specifically what things is that covering to pay for. Very specifically, like 1 million to this, 2 million to that, 3 million to this. Where is it going? Does anybody know?
Yes, we know we've been guided by PDE and approved by PDE legal counsel where the money is going to go. Pat, is that included online?
I don't believe it is, we can put it up online.
Thank you.
Mr. Goff, excuse me, Mr. Goff, if you had been here a couple days ago, you would have seen the papers, because we did get those papers a couple days ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doctor, I just have one question. In that breakdown of 6 million, it did state that we are allocating some funds towards ELA.
Yes.
Is ELA a federal program?
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's allowable?
Yes.
Because it's not a federal program.
that's right. No, we're allocating the funds toward our students with limited English-speaking language.
That's what my question was.
Yes.
Isn't that a federal program though?
Yes, that's a title program.
And are we allowed to allocate state funds towards a federal program?
Yes, Pat will.
That was just my biggest confusion.
Title III is a supplement to our EL program. So Title III cannot supplant what we have to provide. So
So it's allowed.
Yes.
Running the risks in federal funding.
No, I've received from PDE an email telling us that it has been approved by PDE and PDE legal counsel. So we know that we're doing the right thing and we're able to do it.
I just didn't want to get back to it.
I understand.
So they approved the entire breakdown of the 6 million?
Yes, we work with them throughout the process of determining how that money should be allocated.
Okay.
The next speaker is Suzanne Fury.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Suzanne Fury. This is my home school, so welcome to New Marlstone Elementary. I do feel like this is my second home. I probably spend more hours here than I do anywhere else, other than my own home, with my own family. I come to you not necessarily with answers, but I come to you as a teacher with a group of wonderful children in front of me every day. And there are no easy answers, I know that. But what I also know is I see what's in front of us, and the cuts just cannot continue to be made within our schools. We have a large population. You have heard speakers before, Sandy Lamagna and other speakers who have talked to you about how challenging are the challenges that our students have in their own lives, and that's what comes to our schools. And to think that cuts will be continuing in our buildings, that is devastating to me. Our mental health issues are off the charts. Why that is, for a variety of reasons, I believe. Our building is full. Our class sizes are larger. Our district is growing. We're not decreasing in population, we're increasing. And while I realize there is a budget crisis, we still have to address a growing population, which is what concerns me most. When our children come in, we've got to be ready for them. We've got to give them what we need. And what keeps me up at night, to be quite honest, is what is going to be cut next from our students. They've lost library. They've lost instruments. They've lost much of their music. They've lost language. They've lost sign. I could go on and on. I know I say this at every meeting, but it stays with me. And I'm asking you, when you are looking at the budget, please don't make any more cuts from the bottom up. We can't afford to take anything else away from our students. It's not fair to them. And I know life is not fair, but they're children. And They can deal with the unfairness when they're adults. But to take away things from them is just unconscionable to me. They deserve so much more. And I know you have an ominous task. It's difficult, and I applaud you for all of your efforts. I know that you're spending time trying to figure this out. But they're not numbers. They are children. They're live beings in front of us. And when they come in with all of their needs, we as teachers want to be ready to address those needs. And the more cuts that are made, we can't do that. I echo totally everything that Holly Mead just said. I've gotten involved more in the PA school works. I know the fair funding formula is not working. And I echo that. That is an avenue that must be explored. We can't take away from our children because of that. It's wrong. That has to be fixed. And the legislatures, I believe, have to know that you don't agree with this, that we don't agree with this, so we can get the money we need. But in the meantime, please don't take anything else away from our children. Because I feel like that's coming, and I just don't think that's the answer, and I don't think that's fair to our children. Thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker is Derek Lanes.
Hi, my name is Derek Raines. I live at 919 Monroe Avenue. I can't see very well. I can't read. So my friend is going to read my letter to you, and when the letter's finished, please feel free to ask me any questions.
Plan 3, body. Name is Derek Raines. I live at 919 Monroe Ave in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I've lived in Scranton since 1988. During this time, I have seen numerous changes in our city. I was there to support our new high school, and that was actually the last school board meeting I ever attended. As the only person there who was supporting our new school, I felt kind of threatened. But here we are, and many years later, we now have a nice high school our children can be proud of. Both of my children have graduated from Scranton schools, and both were accepted to every college they applied to. My son graduated from Scranton High School with over 20 college credits from his advanced placement courses. So is it good school district? I don't know. It's been a long time since I was actually involved in the PTA or going inside the schools. Now I am retired from 27 years of federal service. I am on a fixed income, as most people are really on a fixed income is. Don't we all really have fixed incomes? I moved on to my block because it was a really nice neighborhood with lots of owner-occupied buildings. My neighbors were business owners, attorneys, college and professors.
I think I tilted it. Should have my mic hold for me. There we go. Jill. Can't see where that block was. It's just reading. Starting right here.
A fixed income, as most people are really on a fixed income is. Don't we all really have fixed incomes? I moved on to my block because it was a really nice neighborhood with lots of owner-occupied buildings. My neighbors were business owners, attorneys, college and professors. That is not the case anymore. I still have some great neighbors who are here, but most of the high-income neighbors have moved away. Not because of the schools, but because of the taxes we pay into the city of Scranton and Lackawanna County. Take note, I've never gotten 4% raise. Numerous friends told me not to buy a house in Scranton, but we did anyway. We purchased a great property that has done well for my family, but here I am today disabled. I'm no longer working for the federal government. I'm a received disability. I pay approximately $500 per month for my Blue Cross and Blue Shield and Medicare. Having multiple sclerosis, my medical expenses are pretty exorbitant. But I am lucky because I do have health insurance and Medicare. But most of all, every time I have any procedure or test done, I pay a large copay. In today's world, everybody needs needs to pay a co-pays. We cannot continue as a society paying 100% of everybody's medical bills. Everybody needs to contribute. I do not know how much the teachers pay into their health care. I do not know how much our county workers like Mr. Lee pay into his health care. But I would imagine it is not as high as I pay working for the federal government. There's no added expense for my neighbors who used to live next door who had 6 children. They pay the same thing that the single woman who lives near me paid. But in actuality that's not true either because nobody pays a fair tax in Lackawanna County. Properties have not been reassessed for decades and all you have to do is look on any block and you can see the amount of disparity between homes. You'll see properties 2 or 3 times what other people pay on the same block with a similar home. There is no rhyme nor reason for our tax structure, but that is Lackawanna County. My complaint today is my total Scranton tax, in fact, that my wife and I paid. You often see in the newspaper they will say a person paying X number of dollars can only see maybe a small raise in their school tax. I was wondering who these people were that had such low taxes. My wife and I's school tax, our face value this year was $4,754, and then you can throw in another $1,000 for county tax, and then of course don't forget that regressive wage tax. The average family that makes $100,000 a year also contribute an additional $3,500 to the cost of living in Scranton. So you can see our combined contribution to Lackawanna County and Scranton is almost $1,000 a month. People do not believe me when I tell them that. It is the truth. You cannot keep coming up to the feeding troughs and taking money from people who really cannot afford to lose anymore. Soon enough our city will be nothing but a bunch of rental properties as the homeowners will continue leaving the city. Was just my school tax paying approximately $400 a month or $100 per week? Yes, per week. I can think of many other things I could do with that money. Yes, everyone should pay them to school taxes, but that is not the case in Pennsylvania because there is traditionally only homeowners who pay into school tax. Yes, people will say that apartment people to pay because they pay rent, but it is not the same as having to write each year. So I played with the school district, don't increase my school taxes again. Live with what you have. If it means we have to have a school bus contract that has put out for bed, so be it. I'm sorry, but I cannot any longer afford to keep giving more than my share.
I apologize for my sermon breaking off in the middle. My drug costs are well over $200,000 a year, and I own my house right by Moses Taylor. That's where my wife worked. My kids went to school at Prescott. It was a great place for my kids to live and grow up, and they both got great educations, but we can't afford to live here anymore. I get 40% of my Social Security. When my wife retires, how are we going to be able to afford to pay our $10,000 a year in property taxes? Do you guys look at that and say, how are these people going to pay for this? Because it's strangling us. And all my friends, the attorney that lived across the street, the professor that lived across the street, the doctor, the business owner, they've all left. They've all gone to the Abingtons because they're sick of just take. And we can't afford it anymore. And I hope that this school board eventually catches on and says, we can't afford it anymore. We can't just keep strangling these people. Any questions for me, everybody? I greatly appreciate all of you. You have a very thankless job. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Case.
Kevin Case, I know him. Nice to see you.
Good evening, directors. Kevin Case, Scranton Federation of Teachers and city taxpayer for a long time. I have a number of things to get through, so I'll try to get through them as quickly as I can. Some of this you've heard me before, please indulge me, but I just feel the need to voice my opinion on certain things. Here's from Appendix A of your agreement with the state. It says the grantee will utilize funds received under this agreement to maintain the same level of education programs and professional staffing during the 18-19 Commonwealth fiscal school year as the 17-18 Commonwealth fiscal school year. Grantee may only reduce educational programs or professional staff after consultation with grantees. Technical assistant provided. I'm just wondering if the technical assistant provided has allowed you the reduction in staff and the reduction in education programs. Is that something that's been agreed on by the state yet?
We had gone forward to receive this grant and met with the state after the furlough plan was put into place. So they had accepted that as is. Moving forward, the plan was for this coming year, when we begin our work in January, for that school year, we're not to furlough any teachers. That is the understanding with the state.
Okay, so there's no going back to the educational or staffing levels of 17, 18?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And can I ask, when you mentioned in the comments, your comments earlier, you mentioned the fact that the state has now agreed to the narrative. Have you written narrative, the appendix
Yes,
B? That's been written?
I have written the narrative. We also have a summary. It was all submitted to the state. The state looked at everything. They came back with some suggestions, and they have, the state has approved it, and the legal counsel for the state has approved it.
Can you tell me the date of that approval?
Off the top of my head, I cannot, I'm sorry.
Is it within the last week?
Oh, no. This was several months ago.
Several months ago, they approved
Yes.
Appendix B, the narrative
Yes.
that you wrote. They approved.
Yes.
There was never any rejection of that?
I think I already told
application?
you they came back with some recommendations. We answered their recommendations and their suggestions and resubmitted, and they've been 100% behind what we've submitted.
Okay, so the agreement is in place, that $6 million is locked in as of a date you can't
Well,
remember?
Kevin, I don't
I'm
have
just
the paperwork
just
here.
curious, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month
I'm
ago?
not going to speculate, but I'll tell you what I will do. Tomorrow I'll send you the exact date on your school email. How
Okay.
about that?
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Please put the breakdown on the website.
Well, I've already asked Mr. Lappy, he
Just
will
remind
get
me.
that done.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then, looking at...
Mr. Case,
yes.
you know that the funding isn't coming to us until
Is this on my time now?
January.
Because
No, this is not, this is my time. I just want you to understand that the funding isn't coming to us
January.
until January 1st payment and June 2nd
Yeah, I
payment.
did understand.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so, and then, I'm just wondering what I'm hearing different things coming from different board members regarding, the hiring of certain personnel, whether it be dean of students or special ed teachers or the PCAs, et cetera. Have you determined, has the board as a whole determined which are essential personnel and which are non-essential? Has that been determined?
Yeah, we have given the board, required by law, we have classroom size limitations on our special ed classes. We are following that to a T. Right now, we are over in some of those classes. We have submitted to the board our needs based on our special ed student population and our staffing needs. And so, with that request for that number of teachers, PDE is going to come and look over our classrooms to ensure that our request is reasonable and that we're meeting federal guidelines.
Yeah, I would be in agreement on both the need for additional administrators in the schools. The high school we're seeing now, we're down one administrator. Mr. Crakey's retirement last year. His position was not replaced. We have two assistant principals who have been, I guess, given about 800 students each who are in their realm. They are tied up. We're not seeing them in the halls like they used to be able to be in the halls. I'm outside of my classroom. I can police in between classes, for those 4 minutes in between classes, but after that, I've got to go in and tend to my class. And I'm still seeing, students in the hall. It has escalated. The number of students in the hall after the bell has gone up. And I believe that's a direct result of the overburden that the administrators have. But I also agree.
That is what your principal has expressed to the board and administration.
I would also agree that, that librarians are essential. They're not just there to hand out books and check in and check out books. They're there with all kinds of good information for students. They can connect them with databases that our students wouldn't be able to find on their own. They just wouldn't find them. To do the research they need for various classes. My own personal feeling, if we were to go back to the old schedule that we have, we wouldn't have any of the problems we're having in the middle school now. We could meet the state original requirement here to have the same staffing levels, and with no real additional costs from prior years, because no one's moving forward on STEP, which is my next point of contention.
Kevin, I want to go back to the question I asked Holly. I want to be sure everyone understands. If we go back to the schedules as they were, the furloughs that you made would really be null and void. You would have to bring back those teachers. So part of your getting the $6 million grant was you were asked to make some very hard decisions. You made them, you got the $6 million grant. It's helping us a bit in our budget, but it is not the end-all answer to what we need, as Holly and Suzanne have said. But for what you're asking, it requires us to hire additional teachers. So you're asking us to hire back librarians, you're asking us to hire back teachers, and then you're not telling us what concessions you're willing to take in order to help us with this budget. And I know we can't negotiate on the floor, I understand that, but we're in a catch-22 kind of situation, and I know that you understand that.
The State Auditor General, nowhere in his comments in his audit nor in his predecessor's audit, stated that we had too many teachers in place, that was the problem with the finances. In 2012, Jack Wagner said, you're paying anywhere from 297% for one particular transportation contractor to 533% to another state contractor. That was, I think, around $2.4 million at the time that was going out for transportation. Since the 297% to 533%, you can work that out. It's millions each year. That's going out too much. Since then, in a 7-year period from 2007 to 2014, transportation contract increases amounted to 11% per year, a 79% increase in 7 years. You don't see that from teachers' expenditures for salaries, 1% per year for teachers. That's not draining this district, especially when inflation's at 2%, and especially since both Auditor Generals are showing that you have a 3%, you've had an average of 3% increase in revenues during that time. So your expenditure for teachers' salaries has increased by 1% per year, your revenues have increased by 3%, your transportation costs have increased by 11% on top of, per year, a 79% increase on top of an already loaded contract. I've asked this question before, I'm wondering if anybody can answer this. Nowhere in the contracts, I've read them, does it say that either of those contractors are the sole provider? They're not this, they just simply are not the sole provider of transportation for our students. Matter of fact, I think it's Article 15, and one of the contracts says that the district can at any time reduce the number of buses for that contract at their sole discretion. I'm wondering why we can't put that out to bid today. I'm wondering why that can't happen today. If they don't have that, they don't have the clause, neither of them have that clause. And if, you know, DePasquale's most recent comments about those contracts is they are the worst transportation contracts in the history of Pennsylvania. Why are we not? It's gloves off. Nobody wants to touch that. Nobody wants to go near that. Why?
Kevin, I believe you missed the last meeting, but Ms. Boland was here when the board decided, because the contracts are being looked at by the Attorney General's office, that they were not going to move forward on anything relating to transportation right now. Except maybe look at some cuts to our special ed transportation, which we may be able to make some adjustments in January and have a savings there.
Could it be possible that the funding formula has remained the same because the Auditor Generals have been watching what we're doing with the money? Could it be possible they're saying, hey, we don't want to give you more money because look at what you're doing with the money you have currently, you know. How about making some changes there? How about putting them out, the contracts out to bid? Maybe that's why they're hesitant to give us extra money. I don't know. If anybody has wondered that, or even asked the Auditor General or the Attorney General. I don't know why we can't act now. I don't know why we have to wait for an investigation to take action on something like that. It just makes no sense to me to wait around hoping that somebody else is going to do the work that you could do here. Yeah, I agree with Mr. McGough. The special ed suits would likely be decreased if we got ourselves in compliance with the state. We've been out of compliance for far too long. I'm sure that's directly related to the lawsuits that we're seeing and all of the costs of litigation, et cetera, and the awards that happen. That would, I don't know, if you could project some savings there, I'm sure the hiring of special ed teachers will be much more palatable. That's all. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Mr. Laffey, the PFN, can we explore the possibilities of bidding out a piece of the bus contract? Or while we're looking on those transponder numbers?
Well, I defer to the solicitor to see if he feels that the contract allows for that.
We're going to we'll look into it for sure.
Okay, if we were to find that, we could put some of those numbers, a piece of that.
We'll look into it.
Next speaker is Courtney Novak.
Hi, I'm Courtney Novak. I'm a teacher in Scranton School District, a parent of 2 children, and a taxpayer. I had a couple questions. Part was on the transportation costs that Kevin had brought up. I know in past board meetings, they talked about having PFM looking at the busing routes.
Yes.
And things, and has that been done? Has there been a report back and any savings that can be found there?
We're waiting for that report, Courtney. We were hoping that would be part of what we get back, hopefully this evening.
Okay. The other question, Mr. Vogel had suggested staggering school times, and I know that can get crazy for parents. I'm fortunate enough that I do take my children to school with me, but most people don't have that option. But would that eliminate the number of buses that we would need? And to kind of bring that cost down too, it might be something to look into. I had another question. I know there was also a study done on copier situation.
report has been brought back. We went through the bid process. We will be recommending to the board a company for copiers that would result in over time quite a bit of savings and still give us the efficiency we need to do business.
And will that help us as a teacher aspect in getting our copies and things that we need back in a timely manner?
Yes.
Personally, I'm waiting for stuff since last May.
We believe so.
The other thing, as a parent, I'm just worried about if there's going to be any more cuts to our children and their programs. We've seen a lot, and as a teacher, we've seen a lot. We are, I've heard rumors, and I'm hoping this is just a rumor, that there is nothing in budget in 2019 for a possible contract resolution, that there is nothing set aside for that, and that has not been brought into the budget. I'm hoping it is a rumor and that there isn't a plan to not settle the contract.
So, just to make ourselves crystal clear, you are asking if we built a raise into the budget for teachers. Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking, well, not as much as a raise because we've already been on
A step increase.
A step increase.
Yes. I don't believe we've included that in the budget that's been presented to the board at this time.
My other question would be then the administration raises. Are they still continuing for 4.5%?
Have we been in discussions with our administrators for a decrease in pay? Yes, we have. And I believe what we've learned is that since teachers, have moved on the salary schedule, principals have not. And so principals are willing to work with us and hope that teachers will come forward with some concession in salary also.
But
They're the
I know-
smallest group we have, as you know.
I do understand that, but maintenance has also taken a pay freeze for 4 years as well. So I think everybody needs to take their share.
Yes.
My understanding is they did not pay freeze.
They have been on a pay
Just to
freeze.
clarify.
Okay,
Yeah.
they have been.
Yes,
Okay,
they have.
thank you, because I know they were
Been
on
on
a
a pay freeze.
contract for a few years.
Just so you're aware.
Okay, no, that was my question, to clarify.
They
So
have.
we had answered it out.
Thanks.
The other part, as a parent, and Holly had mentioned putting out a, like a public plan, a public,
PR campaign.
PR campaign, thank you, for, to get the extra funding from the state. And I know, just talking with a lot of parents, we've always said, just let us know what we need to do. They are all willing to rally and come together because it is for all of our kids. But I think we do need a plan to come together all as one, and even if it's a big trip down.
Well, we've had that discussion for a year now, so we gotta get the bus and just get on the bus and go.
Right, because it's been talked about for a year,
Right.
yes.
And
I think
it's
it's
brought up
something-
quite a bit, so let's
Right.
just do it.
Yeah.
Courtney, there's
the
more
bus.
to the big plan than that. Holly and Suzanne were both at PA Schools Work, which I attended also. And there's a push all over the state, and there is a plan to follow. We just have to coordinate as a board and superintendent administration to get this started. We definitely need the teachers to be on board and help
And the
us to
parents
do
will be-
this.
well, I'm speaking
And
to parents at
parents,
this point, right?
and parents. And the
speaking-
plan has a piece in it for everyone. And so when we're ready to roll that out, we hope that everyone in this room and any friends you can get will join us in this effort.
I think
It's
the
very
sooner
well
we can get more
planned.
details of what,
Yes.
what's to come on that would be better for
Absolutely.
everybody.
And I'd certainly like to be brought up to speed on that. I was not able to attend the first session, but I do feel as
What
though-
we have on the agenda for December 19th is the appointment of board members to that. Remember, we said we were going to bring it back. So we went to the introductory meeting, and now it will be up to you to get your committee ready. And I know Mr. Duffy whether he's on the committee or not, has been a diehard in this whole entire effort. And some of the things he's been doing single-handedly, this plan calls for masses of people to do together. So I think it's going to be quite exciting, and I really hope that everyone will be involved with this. We need everybody on board.
And my last final question, and as a taxpayer, raising the taxes, we're only filling up by 3 million. So my concern is where's the other 1.4 coming from, or more, depending on how many needs to be hired.
I think you talked about some offset in that, was it this evening or last year? With the additional positions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else from the board?
I have something, and I'm sorry that I've been in and out all night, but I haven't tried to listen to what everyone said and at least been there to listen to your complaints. And I love to hear a lot about the state funding, because by far it's our largest problem. I've been working on that for 3 years. I've been down to Harrisburg, I don't know, it's got to be 3 or 4 times. I think everyone on the board has been down to Harrisburg at least once. If we were to get the funding, I think the Scranton Times has been doing a great job covering Sarah Holfius Hall. She'll have something in the paper this week, and I believe that's going to be eye-opening. And if we all came together, what I followed basically was what Erie, Pennsylvania did, and tried to get as much money as we could, and they've been giving us some. So I know that they realize how underfunded we are. They don't want this problem for themselves. They want us to get out of this, and we want to as well. So that goal right there, if we were to show the same type of fortitude that Erie showed, we'll get what we deserve. For him, for all of you, for my other son, and I think we'll be successful in doing it. This is the thing that we have going for us additionally is we're a better case than Erie. We get less money than they get. We tax harder at a millage rate than they have over the past 10 years. And that's something that none of you deserve, that we don't deserve. And additionally, our population is growing. We're asking to consolidate teachers. We're asking to shrink this, shrink that, and we can't shrink bus routes without them filling up with more kids. So we have something that everyone else doesn't have. We have an argument that no one else has. And I think if we all came together on that, we could be a force to be reckoned with, and I know we'd be successful. So I'm sorry that I've been in and out all night. I appreciate everyone coming out, and I think that this is a great start. Thank you.
And to go off what Mr. Duffy said, when we're looking at the state funding, we are $29 million short per year on our per pupil average. So we're being short at $29 million, and this is our tax money that we're asking for back. So we should be all fighting together.
Are we having a representative from one of these funding groups coming to us on the 17th?
Yeah.
We're talking about free PR campaigns. Maybe we ask Department of them specifically going forward on a free PR, because God knows we can't afford PR. Other than,
Yeah, she'll be here again on the 17th to re-explain it with the updated figures that Sarah Hall is working on.
Great.
It'll be eye-opening, I'm sure I've seen it.
So this is the meeting on the 17th?
Correct.
Yeah.
So anybody that would like to hear any more information on that, please come to that meeting.
It's at the administration.
That's Susan Spike,
Correct.
right?